So good morning, everyone, and happy Father's Day. We do have some fathers with us today, and so let's give them a hand. And whether you're a father yourself or not, Father's Day is a day that we set aside to give thanks in a very personal way for our own father. We all had a father, whether we were close to him or not. So we all have a reason to be grateful to that particular person, your earthly father, who provided half of your DNA. It courses through your body. It's the way it is. Life is a gift, and we should give thanks for our parents who made our lives possible. So just allow yourself to feel that sense of appreciation and let it well up in your heart today. Now, I understand that each person here had a totally different experience and relationship with your fathers. I know that, we are live streaming. I know the people watching. Every one of us is unique. Every one of us has had unique experiences. Some people had just straight out wonderful fathers, a role model for us all. Some of us had maybe more complicated relationships. And for some of us, when we think about the word father, we might even draw a blank. So I don't remember my own father since he died when I was an infant, but I can still be grateful that he gave me life. And I am also grateful for all those men who made the effort to stand in his place for me. And I know that most of us had men, even if you had a great relationship with your father, like me, hopefully you had uncles or other people in your life who, added to that wonderful sense of protection and really even nurturing that was provided to us as in our youth, let's say. So I, in fact, was particularly lucky to have several young uncles who filled in as very exciting babysitters. For instance, they were old enough to keep me from drowning, but they were not old enough to know that they shouldn't have let me jump into the harbor with the boats in the first place. And it didn't occur to them to not let me go out walking on a narrow cliff's ledge, or to not just run off and go places by myself, but I survived. And in fact, later on, when my husband and I had kids, I discovered that he would let our kids do stuff like that too. So I don't know if it's really a difference between men and women, but I saw it, I experienced it, and it was a lot of fun. So whatever your family life was like, whether you had a traditional nuclear family, mom, dad, kids, whether you had a single parent, were raised in a commune, or were raised in an orphanage, or were sent to a boarding school. I know people in all those situations. Whatever form your relationship with your father took, whether he was absent or super involved in your life, or whether, like many fathers, he was working such long hours that he was less involved in your day-to-day life than he or you might have wished or longed for. There's still plenty to be grateful for. And really, I was thinking about it. I think when we say the word mothering, it means a lot, right? It's not just giving birth. But when we say the word fathering, maybe we should expand our concept of that word so it's also more than just enabling that birth. Because there is so much that we all have gotten and received from our fathers, the men in our lives. I do think in our culture, and this is, you know, and as I'm saying this, I'm just going to say I do think fathers are often given short shrift. Now, on the other hand, I know that that's kind of a fad right now to say stuff like that, which I'm not really on board with. And yet, it's kind of true, you know. And it's true, even though, yes, there are plenty of families where the father is extremely dominant. And for the past few months, now and then, I've been kind of wondering what the experience of our nation would be like today, this weekend, if our current president's father hadn't been so domineering and critical when he was growing up. Yet, I believe that stories about dominant fathers or absent fathers get told a lot more because they're different. Just like stories about finding an extinct mouse gets told a lot more than stories about other mice. I don't know, I'm just thinking what kind of goofy example, but whatever. We are always curious about the different thing that's happening. That's just how we pay attention. We don't tell so many stories about our normal day-to-day experience. So now I'm going to ask you all to join me in a tiny experiment. If you want, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. But we're going to imagine a couple of pictures. So first of all, imagine a farmer. Just think of a farmer. Picture a farmer in your mind. Okay, now imagine a teacher. Picture a teacher in your mind's eye. Okay, now imagine a soldier. Yesterday was the 250th anniversary of the Army. Imagine a soldier in your mind's eye. Now, imagine a table and a book. Picture a table and a book. And then if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them. Okay, farmer, teacher, soldier. Did anyone here picture all three of them as men? Did anyone picture two of them as men? Yeah, I'm going to say a lot. You know, it's pretty general in our culture to picture a female teacher and a male farmer and soldier. That's the general construct. You know, even though I was a farmer, the first picture in my own mind, because it's just kind of, you know, if you grow up with old MacDonald had a farm, what are you going to picture? It's common in our culture to attach kind of stereotypes to these roles. But what about when you pictured the table or the book? Did you think of either one of them as male or female? Probably not, but if you grew up speaking Spanish or French, you might have thought of the table, la mesa, as feminine, or of the book, el libro, as masculine, because that's the construct in some other languages, Spanish, French, other related languages. So, while that may seem a little bit off the topic, I want to illustrate how we have so many ideas about how things seem to be that we can miss seeing how things really are. And this is the point of our teaching. to see what is happening really. What should we really be focusing on? It's one of the most basic elements of our new thought approach to living, to stop dwelling on what's wrong and look towards what is right. You know, it's the same way. The simple thing that a gardener does is they water the plants and the flowers that they want to see, and they don't water the weeds. What we pay attention to will flourish. What we pay attention to, not just with our watering hose like a gardener, but what we pay attention to with our thoughts and with our actions will take hold, will grow, and will flourish. So I think we see masculine and feminine in a very basic way when we just think of a man and woman. Although, in actuality, we know and understand that everyone has within them traits that could be labeled masculine, traits that could be labeled feminine. We're not one thing or the other. We are, you know, a beautiful emanation of the full spectrum of spirit. When ErnestHolmes, the founder of our teaching, drew up his metaphysical diagrams, they're in the back of the Science of Mind textbook, and I think there's one in the back of this thing called Life, if you're curious. But he drew diagrams to try to help people understand the nature or the structure of life, the way this universe seems to act. And he began with a circle, drawing a circle to represent the infinite spirit, beingness itself. And then he drew 2 horizontal lines through the circle, dividing it into 3 parts. And he said that the upper section represented the attributes of infinite spirit, which are self-conscious, which we refer to as the power, or the word, or the Father, Mother, God. And he labeled this upper section as being changeless, all-knowing, active, and masculine. The middle section, he said, as he drew it, represented the attributes of infinite spirit, which are subconscious, unaware, and yet responsive to the impulses or choices of that self-conscious mind. So we have the self-conscious mind, the aware mind, and then we have the subconscious, the receptive mind. He identified this middle section as representing a creative medium for the unfolding of consciousness, according to what we call the law, or you could call it simply the way things work. And he labeled this middle section as receptive or feminine. And the lower section within the circle represented the effect, the world of effect, the body, the manifestation, the result, our physical world. And this world is constantly changing. This change is constantly resulting from the action of conscious mind, imprinting subconscious mind, resulting in the world of effect. So it's just a diagram. It's not quite reality. I want to be very clear that he just did it as, imagine it's like this. It's not exactly like this. I mean, even a circle, think about it. We say a circle can be used to represent infinity, but it's not infinite, right? It's just a representation. In actuality, I think that ErnestHolmes was raised in a traditional church, and he had the idea of the Trinity in his background, and so it just made sense to him to divide it into 3 parts. It's not really divided, it's really only one thing. There's only beingness, becoming. But in order to understand things, it helps us to look at it in different ways. Dividing it up is just something that we do to understand it better. In the same way, we often use the example that we are constantly planting seeds into the soil of mind, which will then unfold as the fruit or plant of manifestation. In the same way, that's not exactly what happens, it's just a way to wrap our minds around it and help us understand kind of like how it works. It's very, you know, the law of good, as we call it, is a natural law. It's not different than what we're experiencing. What we experience is a manifestation of the harmony of the universe. And so it makes sense that we should be able to look at what we see around us to give us clues. A lot of the things that we know and teach were taught by philosophers and mystics and teachers thousands of years ago, before they had ever heard of all the science of quantum physics and things that we have today. And they were able to come up with the idea of an atom and a lot of things that we talk about today through thought and reflection and meditation. The underlying reality is that there is only one thing. It is a unity, and everything comes from the one. And that's what the circle really represents. It represents the oneness. And so, at the same time, Father's Day is a perfect time to think about the idea of fathering as parenting. Something that we are all engaged in all the time in a certain way. We are always thinking of new things and following through. Something very like the idea of the universe unfolding and evolving. There is a power in the universe. It is greater than we are. It is the source of life. It is reliable, constant, unchanging, and it's no wonder that we talk about it, you know, to get another metaphor, we talk about it as being like the sunshine. A constant source of energy and light flowing into our world, no questions asked, absolutely reliable. We can call the sun our father as easily as we might call the earth our mother. It's not exactly true anymore that drawing a circle and dividing it up with a couple of horizontal lines is exactly true, but it makes sense to us because we have seen our actual fathers and father figures in action. We have seen many of them do great works, exhibit great bravery, provide and protect their families and their communities, and strike out boldly into the world, alone and in teams. And we have also seen our fathers and father figures make plenty of mistakes. Of course, that's what we do. This is life. We're discovering how to live. We're discovering how to act. Life is just one, I could say it's one challenge after another. It's kind of true, but it's also one adventure after another, isn't it? Now, ErnestHolmes wrote that when we're dealing with real life, with thoughts, impulses, emotions, etc., we are dealing with causation, with the original cause. And we should be most careful how we deal with such powers and forces. He said, in dealing with this subtle power of mind and spirit, we're dealing with a fluid force, responsive. It is forever taking form. And also forever deserting the form that it has taken. Thus, a practitioner of this science, meaning the science of mind, the science of spirit, and by a practitioner, he just means all of us. He doesn't mean a licensed practitioner who's been through so and so many years of training. Just us as being practitioners, students. He says the practitioner should not be confused over any given form, what we see, what seems to be the reality, but should know and understand that any form which is not one with the original harmony, the underlying harmony, is subject to change. The original spirit is harmony, it is beauty, it is truth, and everything that goes along with ultimate reality. The universe is not divided against itself. I wanted to share that, This past week when I was writing this, I was like, we're going to talk about faith. Wow, look at everything that's going on. Had lots going on. I know some people were out in the street yesterday. Yay! And I know other people were watching the celebration of 250 years of the Army. Yay! And then there were other things that were not yay. So I'll read a little more of what Holmes said. He said, we should learn to control our thought processes and bring them into line with reality, meaning the ultimate, capital R, reality. He said, our thoughts should tend more and more toward an affirmative attitude of mind that is positive, stable, and above all else, our thoughts should tend toward a real unity with spirit that is already complete and perfect. And that's what we do here on Sunday morning. We get together and remember the universe is already perfect. The Bible reports that Jesus said, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." What does that mean to us? It sounds a little difficult, but we know where heaven is. Heaven is within us. So this, to us, is simply Jesus urging his followers to adopt a positive, stable attitude of mind, to recognize themselves as one with spirit, who, or what? Yeah, spirit is often called our Father. And Jesus said, the Father and I are one. There's only one. It's the very same idea that we express when we say each one of us is one with the universal mind, or that we're like a drop of water in the ocean. The mind we use is the only mind there is. What happens when we use it? What happens when we take the step take a few minutes and feel how united we really are in spirit. When we move from looking at day-to-day ups and downs, and just get centered in that knowledge that we are one. I think that we can say this is a moment of faith in expression. Faith in good, faith in truth, faith in tomorrow, faith in today. When I decided to talk about a father's faith, I had this in my mind, that a father's faith is something exemplary. It belongs to all of us, because this idea of the father, the parent mind and our mind is one mind. Despite everything going on here and there, if you stop and think of this ideal father, this ideal parent, if you think through the concept of fathering or planting seeds into our lives with our positive thoughts, this can illuminate our entire understanding of this thing called life, the ultimate reality. And so thinking about this, working on this idea, I found to be calming. And I hope that you also find it to be calming. This can remind us of what are we all about? How are we going to seek this sense of harmony and contentment and still remain active? Using our thoughts, choosing wisely, allowing our lives to unfold in accord with these thoughts in a healthy-minded way, and then participating, taking action, and deciding to live with courage and joy. You know, as I watched things unfold on the television, I felt joy. I felt proud of the people who were, using their freedom of speech. And I also felt proud of the people who were celebrating the history of our nation. So I really don't know if it's true, but one of Betsy Ross, Betsy Ross is supposedly designed the flag. One of her 7 husbands had the last name Claypool, which was my mother's maiden name. So, I always like Flag Day anyway. Whatever. We're all connected, right? We're connected here and there and everywhere. And, I know someone else who thought their family was related to Pocahontas, but somebody did the research and I'm like, no. So I'm not saying anything about it, but it's fun to think of these things. The truth is that the law of life is a law of liberty. It is a law of freedom. We are free to make mistakes, but we're also free to carry on, learning, correcting, being inspired to carry on again. When we were young, we had faith in our fathers, faith that they would take care of us. And now it's our time to make that faith our own faith and to move beyond mere faith in our fathers and step into this moment and claim what we call the faith of our fathers. Be inspired. Let this idea of faith, this recognition of faith, become your faith. Let a father's faith become your own faith. This is true freedom in action. It's time for each of us to choose to claim and use this faith in our world. How? by taking thought. Conscious thought. Self-conscious thought. This is the whole meaning of the prayer that begins, Our Father who art in heaven. It is a declaration of good unfolding within us, through us, and for us. And that's the way it is, so thank you.
Okay.
So something that I don't usually do, but I really wanted to do it today because as I was working on the talk and I got that quote from ErnestHolmes, I found a treatment that he wrote that I thought would be really nice to close with today. So I'm just going to invite you, before we get up and sing and before we get up and eat, to just take a moment to listen to what he, and it said, here's the treatment I recommend. So he wrote, I am a center in the divine mind, a point of God consciousness, life, truth, and action. My affairs are divinely guided and guarded into right action, into correct results. Everything I do, say, or think is stimulated by the truth. There is power in this word that I speak because of the truth, and it is the truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and my affairs. All belief in wrong action is dispelled and made negative. Right action alone has power, and right action is power. And power is God, the living Spirit Almighty. This Spirit animates everything that I do, say, or think. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am continuously directed. I am compelled to do the right thing at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. All suggestion of age, poverty, limitation, or unhappiness is uprooted from my mind and cannot gain entrance to my thought. I am happy, well, and filled with perfect life. I live in the spirit of truth and am conscious that the spirit of truth lives in me. My word is the law unto its own manifestation and will bring to me or cause me to be brought to its fulfillment. There is no unbelief, no doubt, no uncertainty. I know. And I know that I know. Let every thought of doubt vanish from my mind that I may know the truth, and the truth may make me free. I give thanks, I let go, and so it is.